The first time I went to Washington, D.C., I expected that I would see a lot of interesting architecture and symbolic statuary, but I wasn't prepared for the way one of the buildings would affect me. My wife and I drove past D.C. nearly every summer on our way to see my mother in Massachusetts, and we always said we should stop there someday to see all of the monuments and museums and everything, but we always put it off, citing the traffic and lack of time and so on. In 2003, I had to fly to D.C. to attend a grant justification meeting, but Hurricane Isabel had blown through the city the day before I arrived, shutting down the government and the city. Even after I was in the air, we weren't sure we would be allowed to land at Reagan National. Signs of the hurricane's force were everywhere, but the city's buildings and monuments had largely escaped undamaged. My earliest impressions of the Lincoln Memorial were derived from the black and white photographs in my high school history books. Arriving by cab from the airport on a gray, overcast day, my first sight of the memorial was not much more colorful. I first saw it from the rear, driving across the Arlington Memorial Bridge, but I walked over to the mall from my hotel after I checked in. The gray morning had given way to a bright sunny day, but Hurricane Isabel's remnants were scattered everywhere I walked. The hurricane had even blown most of the water out of the reflecting pond on the National Mall. Before I came to D.C., I didn't think I had any particular attachment to the city or the monuments, or the idea of our government for that matter. But as I started climbing the steps to our 16th President's Memorial, I suddenly realized that the high school history book pictures were about to become real, and a wave of feeling passed through me unbidden. I had to stop on the way up because I found that tears were streaming down my cheeks long before I reached the top. It was difficult to focus to take pictures, so after taking these few shots, I just stood there and drank in the emotions I was feeling. Nothing the rest of the day affected me that deeply. The next year, my wife came with me, and we spent 3 days in the city and saw many wonderful things. I thought I would surely recapture the feeling when I visited the memorial again, but things were different. We decided to take one of those trolley sightseeing tours to get an overview of the city. It was very interesting, but we soon realized we were zipping past places I wanted to stop. After about 20 minutes of this, we got off at the memorial to find that a peace rally, the Million Workers' March, was happening that day, and the building was packed. We still went in and got some pictures, but took as many of the crowd outside as we did of the building. The third time I went, late in 2005, I think I felt more sorrow than joy. I had been carrying a great deal of anger with me for a few years, mostly because of the war in Iraq, but also because of the general decline of freedoms the country was experiencing. By this time, information had appeared in the press about Abu Ghraib, conditions at Guantanamo Bay, warrantless wiretapping, and a host of other problems associated with the Bush administration. After I ascended the steps of the memorial, the condition I found Lincoln's statue in seemed astoundingly appropriate. He was surrounded by scaffolding, something that is done periodically to keep the statue in good repair, but it seemed to me like he was in his own Guantanamo, penned in to prevent him from saying how he felt about the mess the country was in. If the statue could live and breathe, I'm sure the tears would have been in his eyes this time.